used to call me Crazy Joe, but now they can call me Fat Man.
What up? Welcome back to the Necro Zoo. I am Bones. And in this one, let's go ahead and add 2 more figures to my McFarlane DC Multiverse collection. Now today we will take a look at the 2-pack of Bizarro and Batzarro. Now this is a pretty interesting 2-pack with some surprises, some letdowns, and basically you do get a lot of interesting things with this 2-pack. Now we have received a Bizarro before, which is I think the Rebirth Bizarro or the New 52. Wasn't the biggest fan of that version of Bizarro because although the head sculpt went for that more Frankensteinish sort of Bizarro, they kind of missed the mark. So I was pretty interested when I heard that they were going to do another take on Bizarro, and this time we will be seeing our first version of Batzarro. Now when they released the first images right away, there were some things that didn't make the fans too happy, but you know me, I always wait until I actually get the figures in hand and see if there's anything good to come of these, or if they're just added to the shelf and forgotten about. Now they do look pretty warped and twisted in the packaging, but let's go ahead and take a closer look at them. First things first, they do not come with your standard black DC Multiverse stands. Not certain why. Maybe McFarlane basically thinks that everybody should have enough stands by now, so he's kind of cutting back on those. But there are some cool details that they do have. Now, they actually do come with this sort of, looks like a reuse of the Devastator and Superman 2-pack, but I'm not exactly sure. It may be a little bit different. I remember that one having a hole where you might be able to put like a flag or something in there, and this one doesn't have that hole. So I would have to dig out the other stand and compare them, but pretty cool. Of course, as always, we add this to the collection. Now they do each come with their data file cards. On the front, you do have a certain image and style of these characters. So up first, you do have Bizarro. Very interesting character that actually goes way back into the lore of DC Comics. There's been tons of different iterations of him, going from the grotesque and hideous, and even going into the sort of comical versions, which this one kind of reminds me a little bit of that, of more of a sort of like lighthearted take on Bizarro, which, I guess it is what it is. On the back, you do have some information. So we'll add that to the collection. You also get a card with Batzarro. Pretty cool image there. Now, I think the image on this doesn't really represent the figure that they actually gave us. Although the head sculpt does resemble, this comic art, I think the body shape is a little bit different. Now, I do know why they did this. They did this because these are actually reuses of the Dark Knight Returns bodies. So they wanted them to sort of match together. And of course, Batzarro has seen many different versions as well, as has Bizarro. From Mattel to DC Direct, we've gotten versions of these characters in figure form before. And on the back, of course, you have a little bit more information on him. Now, they do come with some accessories. Bizarro comes with these big man strangler hands, but with a little bit of a blue tinge to them to match his skin color. And he also comes for the first time with his sort of like placard necklace that he likes to wear. This is a usual accessory that comes with Bizarro, and really interesting to see McFarlane's take on this one. you do have some pretty nice detail and nice design to it. So really enjoy that. And then you do get two alternate gripping hands for Batzarro, but of course these are the same as that come with the Dark Knight Returns Batman. And he doesn't really have anything to grasp, but I'm sure you could add a batarang or even the same accessory that comes with the Dark Knight Returns. So all in all, pretty happy with those accessories. Now, not going to go too much in the articulation because of course we have seen these figures before, but I do want to take a closer look at them. Now here we do have the Bizarro. Now, one thing I do like about this figure is that he's more of a bigger, hulking body. And of course, this is just a reuse of the Dark Knight Returns body, as is this one here. Superman in his more bulky form, basically using the rendition from Frank Miller. But for some reason, I do feel like this is a very good use of that body because it gives you a bigger Bizarro, which is more how I see him in my mind, more of a imposing figure. So I think this is actually a really good reuse of the body, even more than I would say even the collector's edition Superman that looks a little bit weird, while this weird is his Mulian, so he's fits perfectly with this body book. Now we also did have the, like I said, I think it's the new 52 actually version of Bizarro. Was never really a big fan of this one. I mean, I'm happy to have him in the collection. He has that sort of weird haircut, and I don't like the way they painted in his eyes, which I kind of see Bizarro with like blank eyes, just to give him that little bit of creepy look that I think he was missing. And some other details are like the way his suit was. He didn't have the traditional Superman trunks like this figure actually does. Now, I went ahead and made my own custom version using this, original figure. And that's right here, the purple and yellow. It's more like of a traditional comic Bizarro. I painted in the eyes, added some tone details, and made him his own little chain placard. So, really, one of my favorite customs. I don't get to show him off as much as I would like, but he is a custom that I do have, in my collection. Now, there is two things that I really like about this figure and enjoy. First off, being the head sculpt, which, although it has more like I said before, like of a comic sort of cartoonish feel to it, I think it really fits with that bizarre, Bizarro look. So that actually really is in his favor. So the head sculpt is awesome. He fits well with this big hulking body. And I actually thought it would be kind of interesting to see this head, which I really prefer, on my custom figure. And it actually looks pretty interesting, pretty good. I'd kind of be interested of getting another one of these to go ahead and switch out this new 52 Bizarro head, but we'll have to wait and see in the future and see, how I feel later on once I've, sat on it for a bit. And the only other cool feature with this guy, I mean, he has cool, the same articulation. You can move him around, in the shoulders. The head has great articulation. Could look down, could look up. But besides the same thing we have seen before, the only other thing that is awesome about this guy is that he actually has the yellow S in the back. And of course, it is, mirrored. But it's so interesting that McFarlane couldn't do that for the collector's edition Superman. He couldn't do that for the Dark Knight Returns Superman, but he ended up doing it for Bizarro. Now, maybe he heard people were complaining that, you can't even get the yellow S on the back. So he finally did do that. Now, I'm pretty sure this means that he can actually do this, just reversed for a future release of Superman. So I'll be interested to see that here in the near future. Now, of course, my custom also has his yellow in the back. And like I said, those are the little details that I just think really McFarlane sometimes misses on. And if you were to add those, it just, raises up the figures to a higher level. But all in all, I am happy with this guy. Like I said, I like the head sculpt, I like the bigger body, and it just fits with him perfectly. Now, let's take a look at the Batzarro. Now, of course, as we know, this is just a reuse of the Dark Knight Returns Batman. And I did notice something right away, and that was that I already knew that this Batman was actually very short, especially compared to the Dark Knight Returns Superman. So that was the first like negative that I thought about in my mind, was that I knew he was going to be really short compared to this Bizarro. Now, a thing that everybody saw on the interwebs was the way they kind of flipped over the bat symbol, but just put it like on top of the old bat symbol. But now that I actually have it in hand, what they tried to do was actually make a sort of plug for the bat symbol. And if you're to push that in, you're not really supposed to see the outline of it. It's supposed to like fit right in there and kind of like blend into where the bat symbol, the upside down bat symbol is separate from it. But for some reason, it didn't fit exactly in there. You could kind of see the edges standing up, and it just really looks out of place. Now, I could actually fix this, but it would take me, a little bit of time, and that is by removing this, filling in the hole with epoxy, letting it dry, and then sanding it down, and then actually cutting out this upside down bat symbol and then gluing it on top of the epoxy. Now, I may do that, I'll do a little compilation of customs later on and, say, oh, by the way, I already, redid the Batzarro figure. But it just depends how I feel about this later on. Now, another thing they did was they did add the upside down pouch belt with the pouches open. Right away, what I noticed, of course, is the die cuts. These were made for when the Dark Knight Returns Batman was going to be riding his horse. But for the Batzarro figure, I just really wish it didn't have these ugly cuts in the thighs. There's just, very minimal other details that are really enjoyable about this figure. One of those is the head sculpt. They actually really executed the head sculpt really well. Kind of gives you that sort of xenomorph feel with those, horrible teeth. Great articulation, has a lot of range. One of the other cool details is the way they two-toned the cape. So they have like a gray underneath and a black, on the outside. So really nice figure. I mean, you won't be able to tell any big differences when he's up on the shelf, but there are certain things that I would like to, address on him. But like I said, I could decide to do that later on. Now, I am going to show you guys how to get this guy taller. Now, first thing, of course, is you can extend the neck peg, and it has to be a very small, millimeter of height. You can't go too far because then you'll get a lot of gapping in the neck. But if you do find or, extend your peg, a very small length, you do get better articulation. He looks almost straight up, has great range, articulates really smoothly. So I do like that. And another thing it does is actually give them a little bit of height. Now, when you look down to the feet, this is where I really thought you could actually get him a little bit taller. And, me, I like to tell you guys, what parts I use or what process I use to do my customs. I'm not some sort of DC dork that I have to keep it to myself. But what I ended up doing was removing the original ankle ball joints. And for the life of me, I couldn't figure out where I got these sort of longer ankle joints. but finally I did figure it out. And they are actually from the Endless Winter Batman. Now I think I used two of these to make customs. So I have actually two pairs of these ankles. One of the customs was, of course, my trench coat Bane. So when I made him, I had the extra parts of the Batman just laying around. And surprisingly, they actually fit perfectly into these portholes for the Dark Knight Returns Batman. And if you could see, they kind of fit and they even look better than the little ball joints, the circular ones. These actually make it look like it's a complete boot. So that is pretty nice. And the best thing they do is they actually give him a lot more height to where he's more comparable now to the Bizarro. And all it took was a little bit of heat to pop those off and to pop these new ankle ball joints, these new sculpted ankle ball joints in. And this just makes it look a lot better to where there's not that big discrepancy where Batzarro is really short and Bizarro is way taller. Now it's, more, now they're a little bit more on an even playing field and it makes it look a lot better. So aside from that, the only thing I could think is maybe giving them some accessories from the other Batmans and working on that chest emblem so that it just looks a little bit cleaner. So anyways, guys, nice look at these figures. I'm really happy about the Bizarro. That one is really the standout from this 2-pack. And while the Batzarro is pretty good, he does have some things that actually hold him back. But if you put a little bit of work into him, you may be able to match him up a little bit better with the Bizarro. But anyways, guys, I'm happy with them. They will be going into my complete collection. But you guys keep hunting out there, keep collecting, keep customizing, and I will see you on the next one.
They used to call me Crazy Joe, but now they can call me Batman.